Signalis is a third-person survival horror game about an android called Elster searching for a missing partner after crashing on an unknown planet. The game is available for Switch, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. Atmosphere. Signalis wears a lot of inspirations, openly quoting H.P. Lovecraft and having the King in Yellow as an item you can pick up at the start of the game. It's an amalgamation of a lot of unique things, and it results in a really fascinating mixture. Its low-resolution design contrasts against the flashy sci-fi visuals. The overall look presents a distorted version of the future, a dystopia where androids are imprinted with human minds and emotions they don't seem programmed to deal with. The music is dissonant in some places and relaxed but melancholy in others. Large halls of pulsating flesh fill nightmare realms of brown, rusted metal that contrast the almost anime design of the characters. The cutscenes feel like works of art from a failing mind. Elster is small and weak, and even with guns to fight back with, there's an air of loneliness and sadness to the whole experience, that you won't be able to find what you're looking for as things become more and more foreboding and hostile. Signalis is a beautiful game. It's surreal in places when it suddenly enters the third dimension, and it feels like you've left your body behind because the game's immersion is just so impressive. It's creepy, isolated, and it feels like it's not telling you something. The walls are closing in, and the further you go, the more you seem to leave part of yourself behind. That's one Harry Mason. Scares. Despite the stellar atmosphere, the game's scares mostly amount to the combat, which is where the game really struggles. The limited inventory really feels unnecessarily small for the number of puzzle items required, which makes carrying weapons, puzzle items, accessories like torches and healing items exceedingly difficult. The game's enemies also have a habit of crowding the narrow rooms, making it a challenge to avoid combat, and when you do defeat an enemy, there's always a chance they'll get back up and fight you again. You can make sure they stay down with thermite, but this is quite a rare item which almost ensures that there is always going to be enemies for you to avoid or try and fight. It can be frustrating to deal with, and sometimes even hurt the atmosphere to enter a room and find it jam-packed with enemies and items you need to pick up, but for it to happen over and over again can just be tiring. The game doesn't really try any other way of frightening the player, and that's clearly its intention. There's some spooky sections in the cutscenes, but that's as far as it goes, which is a shame. That's still one Harry Mason. Sound design. The soundtrack is one of the most diverse and beautifully melancholic I've heard in a long while. Distorted pianos twinkle harshly these achingly sad melodies that are cut in two by the crushing dissonance of electronic industrial pounding, scratching and hissing of machines in a menacing dirge. Tracks like The Promise fill the cutscenes with despair and solitude, but a sense of finality, importance. whilst other tracks like The Ritual are murky clouds of sound filled with emotion and this sublime sadness that echoes through each reverberated note. It's absolutely fantastic. To go along with the soundtrack, there's the in-game radio, which lets you tune into various tones and number station style voices that help with the puzzles, but they're incredibly eerie to listen to. The sound effects are haunting, with some really great menu sound effects, like the save game sound that sounds like a boot kicking a ball in a metal tank, this bassy reverberated thud, and the distorted screams of the enemies is like metal scraping against metal, a high-pitched, aggressive screech. The rest of the sound effects are pretty nice, with the guns sounding very impactful and cutting through the other noises in a really neat way. There's no voice acting in the game besides the eerie number station voices on the radio, and this works fine for the story. The sound space and directional audio are pretty much perfect and work really well on a game that focuses on sound quite a bit. That's 2 Harry Masons. Gore. The game's gore is unsettling. The way it's drawn makes it glisten like it's moist. The walls of pulsating viscera that appear later in the game feel like they're growing. When Elster takes damage, she leaks dark red blood that's somehow unsettling to see seep to the floor as she grips her wound. There's not a great deal of gore in the game, but what's here isn't wasted or overdone. That's 3 Harry Masons. Story. After waking up from suspended animation, Elster, a replica unit, tries to find her partner Ariane in their shuttle that's crashed on an unknown planet. After walking inside, she finds a copy of The King of Yellow and a number station starts playing. She then finds herself on a mining colony where all the replica units have gone rogue and is unsure if Ariane is even alive. The story is murky and sometimes a little confusing as it leaves a lot to the player to interpret. There's themes of broken memories from the android's potential pasts, and like it's reflected in the atmosphere and soundtrack, the story is achingly sad. There's lots of diary entries and technical manuals to read about the various android units, and the more that you read about them, the more unsettling and foreboding it becomes. Whilst the cutscenes are the most stark and beautiful parts of the game, they're also the ones up to the most interpretation. Like works of art from a failing mind, there's no real meaning to some of them or the things around them. The story is not always clear, but often tragic, and its several endings reflect that, making the final score 4 out of 5 Harry Masons. Signalis is a beautiful game that's sadly mired by some underwhelming and sometimes frustrating combat, but it's really a very small part of a much bigger and intriguing creature that is the game. Again, I'd like to remind you this whole thing is down to my opinion of horror games, and if you don't share this opinion, then that's cool, I get it. I'd like to point out that whilst I too sacrificed much, I did not let it win, and I advise you don't either. There will be more horror reviews in the pipeline, and thanks for watching. Always go check out Bumps in the middle of the night. Peace.